Awesome. Welcome to our next session. Just going to give a couple seconds for people to join. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our fourth session of the day, RoadMap to RX. For this session, we are joined by two students, one who followed an accelerated pre-pharmacy timeline and another who worked as an advisor helping high school students build strong applications. So if you have any questions for our two panelists throughout the session, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. The recording of the session will also be available in the sessions tab afterwards. But without further ado, I will hand it over to you all.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Gavin Garcia, and I have Hillary here with me. She's right beside me. And today we're going to be doing our presentation on RoadMap to RX. Hold on, my slide's not going to the next one. Give me 1 second.
Okay, so just a couple things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how to make a plan. So once you've decided that you are going to go to pharmacy school, you need to start thinking about what schools you're going to attend and how to use the PharmCast website, which is where most of the application materials will be submitted. We're going to talk about how to gather the different pieces of your application. So that'll include your transcript, as well as your recommendation letters, your resume. And we're going to talk about one of the larger pieces of your application, which is your personal statement, talking about how to highlight your strengths and tell your story kind of in a way that convinces pharmacy schools that you're a good applicant. And then we're going to wrap it up with some interview tips. If your school offers you an interview, just some advice on how to go about that.
So like I said, my name is Gavin. I'm a P2 here at Campbell from Archdale. I'm interested in emergency medicine. Just a little bit of background about my pharmacy experience and how I got to pharmacy school. So I did 2 years of undergraduate prerequisite courses, and once I had taken all the required prerequisite courses. I wasn't able to apply to pharmacy school. I just entered my prereqs in, and then now I'm currently in my second year of pharmacy school here.
And my pathway to pharmacy school is a little bit different. I did the full 4 years of undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill, and I studied math and then made the decision that I wanted to go to pharmacy school. So I had already taken some of the prerequisites. And so I did 2 gap years. And on those gap years, I was working as a college advisor. So I was helping students figure out how to apply to college. And I was also taking some remaining prereqs. And that's how I got where I am now at Campbell. I'm a P2 and I'm interested in hospital or community pharmacy.
So getting into it, so whenever you do start to apply to pharmacy school, you're going to want to use PharmCast. Most of the colleges in the US do use the PharmCast. However, there are some pharmacy schools that don't use PharmCast. So if you were applying to a pharmacy school that was not under the PharmCast system, you would just need to look at that college's websites for like specifics, probably reach out to their admission team and kind of talk about how they do go about the application. But within PharmCast, if where you're applying uses PharmCast, the first thing you're going to want to do is make a PharmCast account. When you make a PharmCast account, you will obtain a PharmCast ID number. This will be your login for as long as you use PharmCast. And then after you first make your account, you're going to complete the college's attendance section. You'll kind of put your personal information in, where you went to college, and just kind of personal information about yourself that's generic. After you've entered that in, then you will kind of select the colleges that you're interested in applying to for pharmacy school. The reason we do this is because a lot of that generic information that you'll enter can be sent to all of them. You don't have to send it individually, but some colleges require slightly different things. So while the generic information can be sent to all of them, some like specific essay questions or different things you might have to do like whatever that specific college wants. So after you've picked the colleges that you're interested in applying to, you'll have to arrange next for your transcripts to be sent to PharmCast into those colleges. So when entering your transcripts into PharmCast, it's very important to make sure that all coursework is entered correctly. Whenever you enter this coursework into PharmCast, you want to make sure that you enter all of your college coursework. This includes like high school AP classes, community college classes, and university classes. The reason that we enter everything in is because colleges want to look at everything that you've done. So when entering your transcripts, if you've completed a class, you'll be able to enter it as completed, or if you are currently like taking a course, you can enter it as in progress. Or if you plan to take a course like future or next semester, you can put that as planned when you're entering your transcripts in. But it is important that whenever you finish these courses, you go in and update it. This is called an academic update, and this happens at the end of fall and spring semesters. It's very important to update your courses as soon as possible. This is just so that way, whenever you are applying to pharmacy school, first of all, it's professional, be timely in your stuff, and it's also important that the colleges you're applying to receive your updated transcripts as soon as possible. That way, they can get you in the system and update everything on their side as well. And another important note to note is that whenever you are applying to pharmacy school, all of the deadlines are due 11:59 p.m. Hawaiian time. So when you're entering stuff into your calendar, make sure that if you are in a different time zone, that you look at the time zones correctly and make sure everything is entered on time. And you want to do your best to meet the priority deadlines. Like I said, it's very professional. It looks very good on yourself if you are getting everything in early and in a timely manner.
Another big part of your application is your letters of recommendation. So this is the time whenever you can have other people that know you speak to who you are as a person, and as a professional. Some of the people that I chose to write my letters of recommendation was a pharmacist that I had worked for and shadowed with, about 3 years before coming to pharmacy school, and I think that she was able to speak to my willingness to learn and my eagerness to be a pharmacist one day. She was also able to speak to how I showed up for work on time. Um, and then I also had a science professor, my organic chemistry 2 professor, write a letter of recommendation. And I think that she was able to speak about just my dedication to learning in the classroom. So that's one good person that you might choose is somebody from your undergraduate program. We've also heard people say they have like the dean of their program write their recommendation letter. So we think that that kind of speaks to your ability to network with people who are higher up in your program, and just that you put forward a professional, I guess, reputation where the dean of that program would be willing to write your recommendation letter. When you're thinking about when to ask people to write your letter, we always recommend you ask at least 2 to 3 months in advance. This gives your recommender plenty of time to think about what they want to say about you, so they're not just writing a generic letter that they've sent to all of the different schools for the students that they teach. One way that I would help my high school students whenever they were asking their teacher to write a recommendation letter is having them give what I called a brag sheet. So it had all of their like awards they had received, as well as any extracurriculars or different clubs they were a part of, just so that the recommender could talk about specific things that they had done throughout the year. And then whenever you're thinking about kind of the purpose of your recommendation letter, you want to make sure that this piece of your application is showing your character traits. So what aspects about you would make you a good student? Those things I talked about earlier about being timely and eager to work, and then also your abilities and qualifications. And you want to make sure that the people that are writing your letters can speak positively about you. So if it's someone that maybe you had a negative relationship with, or they might say that you always showed up late for work. You might want to choose somebody else. Just people that are able to speak to who you are as a professional and as a student.
And I would like to add, for my letters of recommendation, I had a pharmacist write mine, and I know a lot of times people will say like not to ask a pastor, but I had gone on several mission trips with one of my pastors, and he was able to like speak to my character and my work ethic. So in this situation, like it did work because he was able to speak to, the aspects that they look for in a letter of recommendation for pharmacy school. Next thing we're going to cover is a personal statement. This is a very important part of the application. With a personal statement, this is a really good opportunity to express yourself in a way that isn't always like expressed on other sections of your application. So with a personal statement, you can kind of differentiate and describe what makes you the best applicant. You can describe what's special about your life story, experiences that you've gone through. With a personal statement, you want to express your interest in the field. What have you learned about? How have you lived and experienced in the field? What are your career goals? Also, with a personal statement, you want to describe what makes you the best applicant. You want to share experiences that you've gone through that have shaped you who you are today and how this prepares you to be the best pharmacist in the future. And then you want to share what's special about your life story, kind of like what you've gone through, who shaped you into you are. This is important because schools want to know about you personally. There's a lot of generic information about you covered in other sections of a pharmacy school essay or application. So this is a way that you can really differentiate yourself and share, kind of what's special about you. This is also a really good section to where if you did go through something personally, to where maybe your grades might have dropped on your transcript, for example, for a semester. So this is a really good way to be able to explain stuff like special life circumstances that you've gone through, because schools want to know about stuff like that, because a lot of times experiences like that will shape you into who you are today. And going through these things, or if something like that made you realize why you want to be a pharmacist, it'd be really important to share what you learned through those experiences. And also with a personal statement, you want to try to not repeat stuff that is in other sections. Schools they're gonna read your whole application. They'll see all the other stuff. This is a really good place where you can share like specific stories, or maybe when you're doing a personal statement, you don't want to give your whole life story. Maybe just one or two experiences you've gone through, that have kind of shaped you to who you are. And I can kind of use myself as an example. In my high school GPA, there was one semester when I was applying to college where my grades dropped because I went through something personally. And I was able to share that on my personal statement and kind of talked about what I learned through that experience, kind of what happened in life at that moment, and why my GPA might have dropped or my grades look the way they did for a certain period of time. And I was able just to kind of speak to about how that helped me personally realize that I want to be a pharmacist, and how that experience would make me the best pharmacist in the future.
And I'll share a little bit about my personal statement as well. I had students a lot of times whenever they would come into my office for me to read their personal statement, they would try to tell the story like from the day they were born until now. And I really encourage them not to try to tell their whole life story, but pick one story or one one event from their life that shaped them into the person that they are, and how they are today made them the best candidate or the best future student or future pharmacist. My personal statement, I talked a lot about my community. So I come from a smaller community, very rural, where there's not a lot of access to healthcare, and also where there's not a lot of people who go to college, and even less who go to college to be healthcare providers. So I use that as a chance to talk about how that inspired me to go to pharmacy school, and also how that, I guess, played into how do you say how that played into my character traits. So like over time, I had to develop some persistence and develop creative strategies to trying to figure out how I was going to go to pharmacy school and who I was going to shadow and things like that. So it's a good chance to tell about the character traits like resiliency that you've developed throughout your academic journey. Okay. If your school that you're applying to does offer you an interview, you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. And you should really view this as another part of your application. So just understand that the people who are interviewing you have already looked at your application. So again, you want to try to not repeat yourself because they already know the things that are in your application. If anything, you just want to expand on what you talked about in your personal statement and other parts. So one question that you'll for sure be asked is why you want to be a pharmacist. So you should definitely have an answer ready for that. You shouldn't have to come up with that on the spot. You should have a pretty good, like elevator pitch speech on how why you want to be a pharmacist. Just understand too is that this is a time the interviewers want to gauge your communication skills. So as a pharmacist, one day you will have to counsel patients and talk to different healthcare professionals. So make sure that you've refined your professional communication skills. In our interview process here at Campbell, we have a section where we have to do some problem solving activities. So as a pharmacist, again, you'll have to come up with decisions on the spot. And so this is going to be a chance for your interviewers to figure out how well you adjust to that. I always told my students to use the STAR method. So talk about the situation that you were in, and you can give real life examples in these scenarios. Some some scenario that you were placed in and the action that you took to fix the situation. And then it also shows professional maturity if you're able to analyze the results of your actions and talk about what type of things you would do better or different next time. So those are just some of the types of questions you might get on an interview. It also is important that you understand that this is the first time that the school is going to see you. So your first impression really matters. So make sure you're showing up in business professional attire, show up on time, which means being early. And if you're unable to show up, make sure that you call and tell them that. Definitely don't just no show if you decide that you don't want to go to that school anymore, because the schools might talk to each other and, say that you didn't show up for an interview and that would look unprofessional on you. Also, just be aware of your body language, even if the interview is virtual, that you're smiling and maintaining good posture and good eye contact throughout the whole interview. At the end, you might be asked if you have any questions. And so if you have any questions, it's a good time to ask them, but also this could be an opportunity for you to show that you've done some research on the program. You might be asking some questions about the professors there, or you could ask about different community service opportunities that they have, just to show that you're interested in the program. We also think it's important that even after the interview has finished, that you continue to respond to emails whenever they reach out to you, when they contact you. Just make sure that you're being professional in your communication. And you should do this with all the schools that you've applied to, not just the top school that you're interested in. So making sure that you're staying in constant communication with the admissions team all throughout the process.
And one note I would like to add is not every school will require an interview, I think. So like we can speak to our interviews that we've gone through here, but if you had like specific questions about a school's interview process, I would reach out to that school's admission team and they can guide you a lot with information regarding that. And then just kind of wrapping things up, I just wanted to kind of give a few more tips. So when trying to figure out a school to pick, it's important to, kind of get a feel for the school. So I would recommend like doing campus visits, reaching out to admission teams with specific questions and seeing if they have any kind of, outreach stuff where you can come and visit school for a day. Like I know here, we have these things called like farm days where students come and like sit in the classroom with students for a day and kind of get a feel of what it's like. I know here we also do, it's called H-Prep, like health professions, readiness and enrichment program. So if schools do stuff like that, it's always good to reach out to schools with questions like that so you can get a feel for, kind of what they offer, if you like it there, if you like the area. And another tip I wanted to give is the AACP website has some really great information for when preparing to apply to pharmacy school. A lot of the stuff we covered today, they have like tips on how to navigate PharmCast, how to be professional and everything like that. And then we are here to answer any questions that you guys have for us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of you. We do have a few questions in the chat, so I'll just go and jump into the first one. What got you into your career interests, and did your career interests change or do you think they will change during rotations?
So for me personally, my first year of pharmacy school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And this past summer, I shadowed a pharmacist in the emergency room for a day, and I loved it. That's why I'm interested in emergency medicine. I don't really see myself changing the rest throughout pharmacy school, but then again, I still do have 2 more years. In rotations, you experience a lot of stuff. So I'm going into rotations with an open mind, and I'm open to anything. But as of now, I don't see myself changing on what I'm interested in, if you want to speak at all.
I can, yeah. As you saw, studied math in undergrad. I had planned to be a math teacher up until, I guess, my junior year. Um, I had shadowed a pharmacist before coming to undergrad, and I thought I might be interested in it. I just came from, a really small area, and I thought that pharmacist was just like retail pharmacy was the only option. And then as I went throughout my academic career and starting here at Campbell, I got to work in a hospital for the first time, and I really liked it. I like the problem solving aspect of hospital pharmacy. Um, but at the same time, I like talking to the patients at the community pharmacy I work at. So, yeah, I think right now, like Gavin said, I'm going into it with an open mind. But I just encourage everybody to, shadow a pharmacist if you haven't before. It's also a really good thing to be able to write about in personal statements or essays if you have a little bit of pharmacy experience. Um, yeah, so shadow a pharmacist and just see what all is out there for a pharmacy.
Okay. Got another question. When interviewing, if there are events you want to bring up that were touched on in your personal statement, is that redundant for interviewers to hear?
Can you repeat that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. When interviewing, if there are events you want to bring up that were touched on in your personal statement, is that redundant for interviewers to hear?
I think it depends on the question. So I know when I interviewed here at Campbell, I can't speak to every school's interview process. It wasn't more of personal questions like about my personal story. It was more questions of like trying to get about like how you think. Like, it was very like situational based, like in certain situations, like what would you do in this situation or how would you react? Or the interviewers were trying to get a feel a lot more of like how you thought through problems, how you problem solved. And then I know for ours, we also had part of like a team case. So like they saw how you worked in team with others. I would say in my interview, I didn't really have like personal questions to where I would have the need to bring up something in my personal statement. But I guess if a specific question about something like that was asked, it wouldn't be a bad thing to touch on stuff like that because you can further explain yourself if you don't feel like you fully covered yourself in the personal statement.
Yeah, and I think for me, like with the whole situation thing, I was able to, when they were asking about my leadership qualities, maybe I had put in my personal statement that, oh, I was in HOSA or I was in, I don't know, Beta Club or I was the president of something. But the personal statement's usually like a page long, so you don't have time to expand on like all of the leadership things that you were responsible for in that position. So I don't think it'll be redundant if you uh, explain more about like your leadership positions that you had or a specific situation that you encountered, if it pertained to your interview, I guess.
Great. We have one other question. So for the academic update, could a student start as early as pre-pharmacy, such as high school senior year or college freshman year, to keep track of their academics?
I'm actually not sure. That's a great question. I don't see why you couldn't, I guess. I know for me, I didn't start until so I did 2 years of undergrad, and I started putting my information in like the very start of my second year of college, my sophomore year of college. So throughout that whole second year of college, I was like updating my prereqs, and then at the end of my second year, I had completed all the prereqs, and that's when I was able to like finally fully submit my application. I'm not sure how far in advance you're able to kind of like track those stuff in the Farmcast website, but um I could try to maybe find out and get back to you on that. Do
And
you
you
know?
can always email us at farmcast@aacp.org for more specific questions like that. But typically, once you make an account, that does carry over within Farmcast. Um, but you can always keep track of your academics separately if you don't want to make an account too early.
Mhm.
Do we have any other questions for our panelists? Oops, sorry, cast@aacp.org. That's where you can email. Gabriella, do you mind putting that in the chat for us? And I'll also put Farm for Me at aacp.org. And Gavin, you mentioned our website earlier, so I just want to put that in the chat as well.
Mhm.
And then that's the other. Yeah, there we go. Any other questions for our panelists? Are there any other last minute tips that you all want to share? Oh, there's another question. A lot of schools, do they require recommendations for consideration?
Are you talking about like letters of recommendation?
I assume so. Can you specify in the chat for us, Gordon? So typically, I can answer this question. So typically, it varies from school to school on what they require and how many recommendations they require. We actually recommend going to the FarmCast website and looking at the school directory, and each school will tell you exactly what they require, how many recommendations, and who they should be from. And I'm happy to put the school directory link in the chat as well. Yeah.
You asked if I had any tips. I do have one tip. I just want to reiterate that it's very important to kind of stay in touch with schools' admission teams. That's a great help through the process for anything, any kind of questions you have, or like transcript questions specifically. I know when I was applying to schools, being in touch with the admissions team helped me a lot because if I wasn't sure how to do something, I would just email and ask, and they're always very helpful and informative of how to get everything handled.
Absolutely. Okay, if there are no other questions, or if you want to chat with our panelists, maybe in a smaller group format, please visit their booth. It's the Campbell University booth, and we also have about 15, 18 minutes before the next session. So please visit our expo, chat with our representatives. But otherwise, thank you both so much for your time in this great presentation, and I will see everyone else in the next session. Thank you
Thank
so
you all so
much.
much.